this play has been something that I've discussed with the Moonlight for a few years. When it actually came a reality this year, I definitely was one of those pieces. As you know, here at the Moonlight, I've primarily been doing musicals. So when I heard that they were going to do this play, I definitely felt that I not only loved this play, but I also felt that I was the right person to do the play because I had done it before. My twin brother had played the lector up at Sierra Rep, and it's a Latin play, and I feel that as a Latino, I feel I can understand the dynamic of the play. I feel I can understand the language in the play, and I feel overall that the play has so much to tell and a story to tell, and it's in the way that it's put together, that I felt that I needed to do it.
The character is a married woman who has lost herself, and suddenly Anna Karenina, the book, the reader, come to her as a breath of fresh air, and it sparks in her the will to live again, to recognize her soul and to give it the proper weight and importance in her life.
So, you know, the play takes place in the late 1920s in Tampa, Florida, in a cigar factory. And in those days, it was very common to have a lector who was essentially a reader in these factories to entertain the workers. So I play one of these lectors that gets hired by the workers to come in and read to them, read novels to them while they're working. So he is he's a character that comes into this world, this family-owned factory, and really sort of shifts the energy in that factory and the dynamics within the family, both in the relationships between family members and spouses. And he introduces this book of Anna Karenina, and it's interesting because he ends up, the novel that he reads ends up, you end up seeing the world of these characters start to mirror the novel that he's presenting to them. But he's also, I would say, a catalyst to a lot of change within this environment. So he plays a pretty significant role with them.
Well, it's interesting because in the world that we live in, which is Anna in the Tropics, he will have been the third lector hire within a year. The first lector was 80 years old, so he dies of natural causes. The second lector in the factory has an affair with Cheche's wife, and he ends up leaving. So he's actually the third lector. And again, as Steve said, 1929, we're kind of setting it in July of 1929, and he's possibly the last lector that was seen, because really the lectors were, once the Depression hit, it's said historically that the lectors really started to wean away in about 1931, but they were extremely important it was the entertainment for a lot of these people. And as you said, the workers hired the lectors to keep them entertained, and they broke up. The lectors actually broke up their day in three different ways. In the morning, they started reading the newspapers. Midday was more magazines, and then towards the end of the day was more the novels. And again, it was just to keep them truly entertained. They started to wean away again because the Depression hit. There was no money to keep this up, and actually modern machines that started taking over the jobs, like a lot of things are taking our jobs today, became too loud for people to actually be able to hear above all of that. And the owners of the factories, because the newspaper, there was so much politics going on around that time, the owners of the factories also started to wean away from them, because in reading a lot of the newspapers, they realized that the lectors were actually becoming problems, political problems in the factories. So for many different reasons, the lectors started to wean away. But for many years, starting in the 1800s, there were a huge stamp in the lives, a lot of these tabaquerias, no era? It's the factories, which is what we call them in Spanish. So the lector really is there to read to them and to keep them entertained. And in this play, he's the catalyst for a lot of the different relationships that that get created in Ana in the Tropics. Ana en el Trópico in Spanish, en el español.
And imagining himself in a situation in which it was necessary to endanger his life. This old ingrained feeling now reasserted itself. Let's suppose I challenge him. Let's suppose someone teaches me how to do it, he went on thinking. They put us in position. I squeeze the trigger, he said to himself.
For me, the interest was in the fact that I know this is the very first Latino who wins the Pulitzer Prize. And it was a work that was created by his interest, Nilo Cruz's interest in history and in rescuing those bits of the past that have made so much difference in the lives of many people in Florida in this case. I mean, it's an industry that is well and alive, but when you go back to the roles that different individuals played in the life of so many people, you learn many other things. So I came auditioning for a different role, and of course I'm thrilled to be playing Conchita. And because in a way, the role of women is also changing. They are more part of the factory now. They are workers. They earn their own living. Even though, of course, there were many instances of fair earnings, disparities in earnings, and in the type of things women could do versus men. Now, even the division of labor was well and alive. But the historical context of the play and the romantic role of someone who came to keep the imaginations alive is really unique to this play, and that's really the beauty of it.
I've always been an admirer of this play as well. I was well aware of it from back when I was, first studying drama and theater. It was a play that I was well aware of and always admired as a Latino, and it being a Latino play. I think it's a really unique, interesting story with some great characters, and Nilo Cruz really does a great job of writing out these really strong characters, especially in a Latin play, female characters especially. I think Conchita is just it's really unique to see when you consider that it takes place in the time that it does in 1929, to have such a strong female character who has her own thoughts, has her own opinions, and is not afraid to sort of voice them. That is really cool to see. And then just as the role that I play, Juan Julian, I thought it would be a great challenge. I love that he represents tradition, and he represents the old country and the old roots in this time when there's sort of that shift into modernity. And that's a really interesting role to really bite your teeth into. And that really attracted me, and I wanted to work with Carlos again, because I haven't worked with him for I think about 10 years.
Something
when
like
I
that,
first
yeah.
moved to
Wow.
this town. I was a little babe.
Tolstoy understands humanity like no other writer does.
That's a good reason to read him.
Now, someone told me that at the end of his life, when he knew he was going to die, he abandoned his house and he was found dead at a train station, the same way as... Oh, perhaps I shouldn't tell you this.
He was probably on his way to visit God.
That has always been my suspicion.
Pardon me, but I must go.
Well, absolutely, and I think it's important to remember that this is when the whole fight for voting rights starts to happen. Women couldn't own property, they couldn't really manage their own money, they had to have a husband by their sides. And this is when women start saying, hey, I'm not wearing any corsets no more. I'm just going to, let go of those instruments of torture and just let my body be the way God meant it to be, if that's what you think. And so they started cutting their hair short. They started assuming more the qualities of males, like wearing suits. And nothing makes sense to me anymore.
back to him and tell him you want to make love like a knife.
Why a knife?
Because everything has to be killed.
Tú sabes cómo estoy sufriendo, tú sabes que no puedo más, tú sabes que me estoy muriendo por tus celos nada más, tú sabes que no estoy mintiendo,